As portal season ends, Nebraska's trouble in finding defensive linemen who want to join this program continues. Why is that? Let's talk on a National Championship Monday.
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one sports podcast network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The college football playoff is here. The final day is here, and the FanDuel is the best place to get into the action all playoff long. So visit FanDuel.com to get your college football playoff profit boosts every game day.
All right, welcome. It is Monday, National Championship Monday here on the Locked On Nebraska podcast. I'm Connor Happer from 1620 The Zone. There's Mitch Sherman from The Athletic, the also known as Hoosier Coronation Day, potentially here. I don't know. That's kind of what it seems like. But Indiana is a pretty significant favorite to win the national title, a 7.5-point favorite to win the national title. And it's a big Kurt Cignetti roll out the carpet day, it feels like, for everybody.
Is it going to rain today in Miami? I saw Sunday it was like a torrential downpour, but that stuff usually moves in pretty quick and out in South Florida. They'll probably have the sun back.
Classic Florida. But yeah, we'll be watching certainly this evening for the national championship. And if it goes the way that most expect it to go at this point, Indiana is going to have a 16-0 season, but we will talk about that and make predictions a little bit later on in the show. Let's get to our portal headlines from over the weekend. It was a bit of a busy day on Friday. This was added to the fact that Matt Rhule went on the Huskers Radio Network and said a variety of different things about a variety of different topics.
He sure did.
Which we will get to, but the portal headlines are this. So Owen Stoudemire from Boston College committed to Nebraska on Friday, and they didn't end up getting a visit from Oregon's Terrence Green, who that was predictable because he pushed the visit back and then committed to Alabama on his visit, and they lost Andy Berberia. Oh, what were your favorite moments of the Andy Berberia era?
It seems that they lost Andy Berberia. I don't know that Andy Berberia can go anywhere until May, but he may well sign with Clemson. That appears to be the belief of some of the recruiting experts. It was Chris Hummer of 24/7 Sports and CBS who first was on the scene with that prediction on Saturday. So yeah, Berberia, he had a long-lived stay at Nebraska that lasted officially 0 days, and for whatever reason, the pipeline that Nebraska has tried for many, many years or I don't know if Nebraska's tried, but the pipeline that many people have wanted to see established with Iowa Western Community College appears yet again to not be getting off the ground.
Yeah, super odd. I guess there is some academic stuff going on in the background. I don't necessarily know what about that particularly changes his plans from Nebraska to Clemson, but that's
right. Like he still has to graduate. He still needs an associate's degree by May. Whether he has to, there was a report from Husker Online that he has to retake a math class, but all right, it perhaps makes him a little bit more of a risk to get eligible by the end of the semester. And in which case, the suggestion was that Nebraska would rather devote NIL and revenue sharing resources to a different defensive lineman. Is there another one out there? It probably is going to have to come from the high school ranks because portal's closed and players are taking their seats in the musical chairs. There's still going to be some movement. You can always have players from the championship game who go in the portal as this week goes along. I don't believe that Nebraska's in the running for any Indiana or Miami defensive linemen, but the Huskers could be getting a high school signee next month to partially remove the sting of losing Andy Berberia.
Yeah. So there's sort of a lot of moving pieces there that if there is another person, that person hasn't been identified yet. I would definitely keep your eyes open just to see if anybody pops up here in the next couple of days for Nebraska to take along the defensive line. But I think they probably feel okay.
Yeah, first transfers go. Yeah.
About what they got with Stoudemire in the group, and just your Whittington from Pitt to pair along with the journeyman, as we refer to him as, Anthony Jones from UCLA and many other Big Ten schools. So you added some experience, obviously some size to go along with the guys that you had coming back, and then obviously, as we've talked about, plenty of a new defensive coordinator, and officially a new defensive line coach.
It has been announced. It has been announced
in Corey Brown. So yeah, there's some movement there, but I think they did okay along the defensive line.
I think okay is the right way to put it. It wasn't great, and Nebraska targeted a lot of players who it either didn't get visits from or was unable to close with, and I think if Berberia had been all buttoned up and been able to join the Nebraska program at the semester, then you would feel a lot better with the group that Nebraska added in addition to a junior college offensive lineman. I think the thing that can be easily overlooked here, because of the way that the last 3 games went for the defensive line, which was just one mess after another, is that Nebraska does return Riley Van Poppel and Cade Petschak, and it does return Cam Lenhart and Williams Winery and some young players who are promising. Tyson Terry and Malcolm Simpson, who redshirted in the program this year, David Hofkin, who has been making some progress, Sua Lefotu, who's a veteran that's been around and has been through some injuries, but Nebraska would like to see break through as a junior. So there are pieces. The cupboard is not bare. Nebraska did not make a huge splash in the portal along the defensive line with the 3 players that it added. Now they all have starting experience at the Power 4 level, which is respectable. But if you're looking for somebody to come in and be a game changer, be a program changer, be a defense changer, I don't know that Nebraska found that player.
No, the way I sort of view it from an overarching perspective is like even these guys that we've been talking about here, Stoudemire and Whittington and Jones, like I think they just go into the pile with all of the rest of the guys. I don't know that you would say, all right, that's your starting defensive line today. I think the guys who already are on Nebraska's roster will have a lot to say about that. So you had a little bit of depth there, and I think some much needed size. And that's where you ended up along the defensive line. Now it's a chance for some younger guys to really make a jump going into the next into 2026.
They're not like giant defensive tackles. They're not the kind of just space eating defensive tackles. Terrence Green was the Oregon transfer who was all set to be in Lincoln at the end of the week as soon as the dead period ended, and may have been on his way or may have made it to Lincoln or Omaha and then got pulled out to go to Alabama. I mean, that kind of stuff can and does happen in this world where you're throwing around high 6 figures or more to get players. Like, it's not a big deal for somebody to send a plane or to divert a plane or
crazy
or to tell a player to go to the airport and buy a plane ticket, whatever it might cost. Like,
it's funny, Mitch, like Rhule mentioned on the radio, his radio appearance on Friday, he talked about this with another position, like that day where they ended up getting Calandria, like they had DJ Lagway, who was like already there or was en route, and then another guy who was, I can't remember who was the third guy.
Was it Aiden Childs?
Aiden Childs, yeah. And Rhule said, like, we had to basically make a couple hard phone calls, like don't come or come, whatever, see what you're going to see, but we have our guy,
But Coach, I'm at the Waverly exit. You're going to need to turn around. There's a gas station, hey, get a sandwich on us and then head on back to Epley. I think that something along those lines happened with Terrence Green, who was 6'5" and 330 pounds, and like just fits the physical profile of the kind of player that would have made you feel better about what Nebraska added at the D-line position in the portal. Whittington is 6 foot, 270 pounds. So he played bigger than that in his time at Pitt, and then Stoudemire, the transfer from Boston College, was injured this year. He's listed at 6'1", 292. He'll be a 6th-year senior, so he's got experience, a savvy player, played in just 3 games this season. The majority of his reps came as a 4th-year junior in 2024, and that was the year that Nebraska played Boston College in the Pinstripe Bowl. So Huskers got to see him then, but yeah, we will see. Maybe it'll just turn out that Riley Van Poppel, with a new coach in Corey Brown and new defensive leadership with Rob Orich, has a breakout 2026 and becomes the player who was on a path to be like Ty Robinson that I think we thought he was a year ago.
Yeah. So there's certainly some room for upward mobility, I think, a little bit on the defensive line, but Nebraska did okay as that one closes. And once again, keep your eyes open. Maybe another guy pops up over
it could happen
for 48 hours. All right. Yeah. Let's take a quick time out here. As we've talked about a little bit already, Matt Rhule made an appearance on the Husker Radio Network on Friday and had some things to say about a lot of different things, but most notably the impending decision that Mike Ekeler has still coming, I believe. We'll be back after this.
Still hasn't been made.
But first, a word from the FanDuel Sportsbook. Yes, this is the final day of the college football season. The college football playoff national championship is here. FanDuel is giving all customers even more ways to get in on the action every single game day of the playoffs, this one being the final opportunity in that regard. So you look at Indiana, who is a 7.5-point favorite at the time of recording here in this game. They're minus 310 on the money line, over under 47.5. So whether it's that or any of the player options that you have that you want to go for some same game parlays, maybe some things on the Heisman winner or anytime touchdown scores, you have the ability to find this, and there will be profit boosts that will be available to you as you get prepared for the game. So head to FanDuel. FanDuel, it's great. It's going to pay you out instantly, which is going to give you another opportunity to get more involved in the game that we're talking about. The best place to get in on the action all playoff long. Head to FanDuel.com to get your college football playoff profit boosts today. All right. Welcome back, and thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen today. Thanks for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. All right. So the Mike Ekeler situation, this is most certainly a situation at this point. On Friday, Matt Rhule went on the Husker Radio Network and referred to it almost in the past tense.
I think he did at one point refer to it in the past tense. Yes.
Yeah. Said some things about how special teams went this year. Presented confidence in the unit going forward with the guys who will be in charge of it, guys like Josh Martin and Nick Humphrey, who came in with Eckler, and then said Brett Maher was like sort of a special secret weapon and does a lot of work behind the scenes for Nebraska in that category. But also mentioned some of the shortcomings of the special teams this year, like how they did not beat Iowa in special teams. They didn't beat Iowa at all, but they beat Iowa. They did.
Can we stop right there? Can we stop right there with that? Nebraska had a goal to beat Iowa with the special teams and fell short in that goal. What about the goal to beat Iowa with your offense and your defense? Because I don't think the special teams was the big glaring takeaway that I had from Nebraska's reasons to let the what do I want to say? Like, Nebraska did not lose against Iowa because of poor special teams play.
No, they lost 40-16. If I remember correctly, that was the score of that game. They allowed 40 points. They got ran all over, and it was a total mess from a variety of different angles. I think probably including special teams, but not like glaringly so in that game.
So why is Matt Rhule making an effort? Why is he going out of his way to point out the shortcomings that Nebraska special teams had as his coordinator of 1 year seemingly has turned his back? I think Rhule feels a little, and I haven't heard this from him in these words from him, but reading between the lines, I think he feels that Eckler has betrayed him a bit in the way that this has gone, in that he preached the importance of coming back to Nebraska, and Rhule took him at his word on that, and then had success at the beginning of the year. Rhule put a big fat contract in front of him. He was already making $625,000, and Eckler chose not to sign it. And here we are at a place where he is discussing a job with USC, and I think Rhule's just kind of had enough at this point. At least that's how the head coach, that's how his words have come across to me.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different things at work here. Like we talked about this quite a lot, but last week, sometimes sometimes, I mean, Mike Ekeler has had a lot of different changes of scenery over the years. So there's that. I mean, he's a guy who just kind of bounces around a little bit. And with that being said, I think Rhule, like you said, Mitch, they kind of felt like, hey, we put a contract here. We're bending over backwards. We want to keep you. And they were not met with the requisite amount of like, oh, okay, thank you, I feel appreciated, and all of those different things. And but now, as it appears that he is headed out the door to USC or wherever, probably USC, it seems like. It does seem like a little bit of sour grapes, to mention, the Iowa thing. And then another quote was, it's not about playing special teams for special teams' sake. It's about helping the team win. There's one thing we could do better next year. It's not for the glory of the special teams or for the special teams coach or whatever. It's for the unit. Not everyone likes that.
Okay. That to me, I have a hard time deciphering exactly what he means by that. It sounds like he's again, this is suggesting that Eckler made the special teams too much about Mike Ekeler. And this just isn't like standard operating procedure when a coach leaves. So at the end of the situation, when we get another day or two down the road, I can't understand why it would have to take much longer than that. The portal is now closed. What are they talking about? And if it's taking Eckler this long to figure out something at USC, is that really the right fit for him? By the time we put this chapter in the past, it appears that he's going to be gone, and it unfortunately had kind of appears to be having kind of an ugly end to it. So I think Rhule feels like he went outside of his comfort zone just a bit in hiring Mike Ekeler. This wasn't like a standard one of us OOU hire. It's not somebody who had connections to Matt Rhule in the past, and that hasn't been a cut and dried prerequisite for him. He has hired people that he didn't coach with previously, or that one of his assistants didn't coach with previously. But this was maybe more outside the box as far as their personalities meshing than what Rhule is comfortable with. But and so I think you're seeing him perhaps rethink the situation and what kind of a fit it might have been from the beginning, in spite of the fact that Eckler had a lot of success coaching the special teams.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing.
I'm not defending Rhule there. Like he has to be
Yeah.
able to fit to all different kinds of coaches, or you're closing yourself off to you're capping your ability to succeed.
Yeah, I think, for him to go back at the end and say, hey, look, we got better in a lot of different areas, and we're going to take those things. He mentioned like the process of coaching and all those things that he really liked for Mike Ekeler, and we're going to take that and we're going to apply it to these new people who are going to be in charge of the special teams. But then to go back at the end and say, yeah, well, the results were pretty good, but they weren't that good. I'm paraphrasing, obviously. Like they were a lot better. They were good on special teams from coming off of years of being horrific on special teams. So I don't know. I felt like maybe some flowers were due there, but I understand how he feels. He probably feels like I said, he bent over backwards for him and weren't able to get the deal done at the end of the day.
Nebraska would have lost at least one more game if it didn't have the improved special teams play that it did in 2025, and maybe two more games. So we'll just leave it at that because we have to talk about the Nebraska basketball team.
Woo.
We'll get back to Matt Rhule and what he had to say on Friday in the third segment. But the Nebraska, it's far too long. We've waited far too long to talk about how the Nebraska basketball team is 18-0 after a 77-58 win Saturday at Northwestern. Nebraska fans made their presence known in the arena. They're starting to do what fans of other successful Nebraska, or it doesn't even have to be successful, just popular Nebraska teams do. They show up in mass on the road. I am amused sometimes at the suggestion that Nebraska fans travel really well at a game like that. It could just be that there's a lot of Nebraska fans who live in and around Chicago. It's Chicago. It's a population center. Nebraska fans went to the game. They didn't all drive from Lincoln, although some did. So Price Sanford scored 22. Braden Frager had 20. Sam Hoiberg had 12. Nebraska was able to get away with another game, a second game in succession, without a big contribution from Rink Mast, who played just 20 minutes in that game at Northwestern. And the Huskers are going to go up at least one spot in the rankings today because Iowa State lost twice last week. So there are only 3 undefeated teams left: Nebraska, Arizona, and Miami of Ohio. At number 7, that would be the highest ranking in school history. And the Huskers might find themselves actually higher than number 7. We will find out Monday midday.
Yeah, as I've said before, the further this goes along, and it's not showing any signs of stopping anytime soon. People have a keen awareness about this team right now, and so you're not only going to see the rankings come out, and it's going to say that Nebraska has the highest ranking in school history when they're at least number 7 on Monday in the AP poll. Like you said, maybe even higher, but there's going to be 100 new bracketologies, and most of them are going to say that Nebraska's a 1 seed in the bracketology.
A 1 or a 2. They're going to be a 1 or a 2. That's what we're left with. It's not going to be lower than that.
It's
on the bracketology. I'm not saying that they're going to be a 1 or a 2 for certain in March, although we're getting closer to that.
Yeah, you can't argue with it. I mean, they're friggin' 18-0, and so they matched their number of Big Ten wins that they had last year already through 7 games. They won 7 last year. They went 7-13 in the league last year, and people picked them 14th in the conference going into this season. So it is. I think we're dealing with this thing, Mitch, where it is simultaneously out of nowhere, season to season, right? At least from the public, the general college basketball perspective, right? Look at the team last year; they didn't make the Big Ten tournament, and then go to this year, they're picked 14th and they're 18-0. And then also you have the historical precedent, which is none for Nebraska basketball, having not won an NCAA tournament game. And then you have, this team who just keeps passing all of the tests with flying colors. I mean, to go and win by basically 20 on the road, with no panic, no sign of like, oh, they're going to let this thing slide or something like that. No, it's just a confident, alpha type of team, who goes about their business in a quiet, confident manner, and they are absolutely built to win more games like that on the road, and certainly take care of business at home. So, I mean, they're like, Ken Pom has them projected through the regular season at 27-4 right now. That's a 1 seed. So get prepared if you're not already, which I'm sure people are preparing themselves at the moment.
They're 6th in the NET rankings, which is the like the NCAA produced rankings that incorporate all of the quad 1, quad 2 victories. So it's heady stuff. It's crazy stuff. I don't know. We'll spend more time on them this week. Nebraska plays Washington at home on Wednesday night and then goes to Minnesota Saturday. After that begins the toughest stretch of the year, which is 3 teams ranked in the top 13 right now in a 4-game stretch. So it'll be Michigan on the road, Illinois at home, Purdue on the road, and that Rutgers game is in between Illinois and Purdue. So Michigan, Illinois, Purdue, all in a 4-game stretch between January 27th and February 10th. So Nebraska will not play a team that is currently ranked the rest of the way after that Purdue game.
Yeah, there'll be some teams probably on the edge of that, like they still have Iowa twice.
Some good teams. Good teams. Yeah.
Right. But yeah, I mean, at this point, it's not magic or anything like that. Like,
no, there's a very good team.
The magical part of it is the fact that they are 18-0, right? Like just looking at it, that part of it is sort of magical. But watching them, it's not surprising how they've accomplished what they've accomplished so far.
And they're really fun. You guys know this. I mean, viewers, listeners. I assume everyone's watching them at this point. But they're showing up on all of these like inside basketball X's and O's. Diagramming their plays on social media because of how well they move without the ball and just all of the half court stuff that Fred has actually been able to draw up during his entire time at Nebraska. He just has players who execute it much better now in harmony than any and all of his previous Nebraska teams. So it's a cool thing to see. We will continue to tune in and talk about them. And probably just about every show for the next few months. So stay tuned, stay with us. We will go back to football after this break and talk about what Matt Rhule had to say about the running back room at Nebraska. That is coming up next. Right now, a message from TurboTax. Tax season does not have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever just to hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax Full Service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish, without the stress or the guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. They will handle everything from W-2s to self-employed forms and get you every deduction that you are owed. Upload documents, go about your day, and get updates right in the TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver and gives real peace of mind knowing an expert is handling it. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in if a TurboTax expert did not file for you last year. Just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. As we've mentioned, tonight is the national championship game in college football, the final game of the 2025 season. Indiana, a 7.5-point favorite, according to FanDuel. Kickoff time will come shortly before 7. ESPN broadcast of the actual game starts at 6:30. I'm sure they'll be on for hours before that, discussing everything leading up to this game. There will be many channels that will be bringing you great coverage of Indiana, Miami. So home stadium for the Hurricanes. We will spend about 1 minute on this game. Connor, who are you liking? Who do you pick in this game, and what is your score tonight? Will the Big Ten win a third consecutive national championship?
They will. It'll be Indiana, and I almost feel like I can't. I don't know. This story, I don't feel like it ends any other way. You know, I just feel like this is Indiana. They've been the best team in college football, all season long, basically. And I think they're better in a variety of different ways than Miami is. Miami's had an awesome run to get where they've got to. They certainly have their strengths. Can't wait to watch Miami's defensive line against Indiana's offensive line. Like if they could slow the game down a little bit and make it smaller possessions, sort of like Iowa did to them this year, then they're going to be right in it. But I just think Indiana's got a little bit too much firepower on both sides. So give me 30-17 Indiana national champs.
It's amazing to think what these teams have to do to win a national championship now. And Ohio State had that 4-game run that was incredible against the opponents that it played last year in the CFP. And Indiana this year if it pulls this off, would have beaten Alabama, Oregon, and Miami in consecutive games. And that's on the heels of beating Ohio State in the Big Ten championship. So it is hard. It is hard to do what the Hoosiers are making look easy. The last time Miami played in a national championship game in its home stadium, I was there. It was after the 1994 season, and Nebraska came from behind with the two quarterbacks in the game. We remember, well, some of us remember, some of us just have been told stories about it, with Tommy Frazier coming off the bench. And then of course you had Brooke Behringer coming back Brooke Behringer came off the bench. Tommy Frazier started the game. Man, I almost messed that up. I did mess that up. Tommy started the game. Brooke came off the bench, and then Tommy came back in, and then Corey Schlesinger scored the 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter to give Nebraska a 24-17 win. That's my score for tonight. Indiana 24, Miami 17.
And bring that trophy back to Lincoln, except for it's Bloomington.
Bring that trophy back to Bloomington. Mark Cuban will carry it out of Hard Rock Stadium.
Yeah, awesome.
With Kirk they'll carry it together.
I can't wait to watch this game. It's going to be so much fun. Elsewhere, let's get to what Matt Rhule had to say about a couple of other things. Running backs, a topic of conversation around these parts, and certainly on this show over the last several weeks. We've
been clear.
Are they waiting for somebody? It does not appear so. Matt Rhule saying, hey, we like what we have there, and we're going to roll with them. So that means Mekhi Nelson and Isaiah Mosey and Quentin Ives and Connor Booth and Jamal Rule with Jamarian Parker now out of the equation there in the running back room. He transferred out. So that's your room. And that's what they have for ball carriers next year, it seems.
Yeah, it's not going to be a one-man show. And I'm confident in saying that in 2026, this is not going to be a repeat of Emmett Johnson and what he did. Nebraska's not going to have a 1,500-yard rusher, most likely in 2026. And you have to consider that Anthony Calandria, the quarterback, is going to be involved in the run game a fair amount too. Although you hope that those backs can take a lot off him, and Calandria is a 6 to 10 carry a game kind of guy, so he doesn't get beat up too much in the Big Ten. But this is what it's going to be: Mekhi Nelson, Isaiah Mosey, Quentin Ives. Ives will be the short yardage guy. So I've seen lineups of running backs that have done well that probably have less than that trio. There just isn't. My concern is that there just isn't somebody who's proven. There isn't somebody who's done it before. And when it comes crunch time, I just wonder, are they going to have somebody to lean on? How are they going to be in pass protection? Who's going to provide the leadership? That kind of stuff. But obviously Matt Rhule and EJ Barthel and Dana Holgerson are confident in these players, and they chose not to devote money in the portal to go chasing after a top running back. If it wasn't going to be like an Emmett Johnson caliber back, then there probably wasn't a reason to bring somebody in. There wasn't a reason to bring somebody in who say might project to run for 600 or 700 yards, because you've already got several of those players who can be at that level. So unless you were able to go out and get a home run hitter, then I suppose it makes some sense to do what Nebraska has done, but it's a gamble, I think.
That part I agree with. If it wasn't going to be one of the big names on the transfer portal list from this offseason, then Nebraska feels like, all right, well, we have a bunch of those guys in the room already, so let's just roll with them. And as Rhule said, it's sort of an opportunity for those guys to get their chance. Emmett Johnson needed a chance, got a chance, and was really, really good in that chance. And so like you said, Mitch, I don't think we're looking at an Emmett Johnson season coming up here. And I understand, and I'm certainly nervous, just like everybody else who's probably listening to this is like, I don't know, man. I don't know what you have back there. But you're asking for jumps for some guys who haven't really done it before.
And they bring different skills. The three, that's one thing I do like about that top trio, because you can't count on Connor Booth and Jamal Rhule. You have no idea. Neither one of them has taken a carry in college. But Booth might have had one carry.
I think Booth had one or two. Yeah.
Sorry, Houston Christian. That's a non-factor. But they are three very different kinds of backs, and that's encouraging. And if you can get 1,800 yards out of the three of them and add in a quarterback with a running threat, then you probably didn't need to spend money in the portal on somebody this year, and it was probably better spent on offensive linemen. And Nebraska did well in bringing in 3 potential starters on the offensive line. All right, one other thing I want to get to before we get out of here on this Monday, we'll skip this subject that I had down here about makeup of Nebraska's defensive staff and talk about that later this week. But the spring game is back. Rhule announced on Friday night on the Huskers Radio Network with Kyle Crooks. They're going to play it on March 28th. It might snow. It's also the day of the Elite Eight. 2 Elite Eight games will be played on that day.
No.
Yeah, I think they're in the evening. So you'd be okay, Nebraska fans. You can get to Memorial Stadium and see the spring game. You won't have to make a decision about watching Nebraska play in the Elite Eight versus the spring game. We could only imagine what that would be like if Nebraska was in the Elite Eight playing for a spot in the Final Four on March 28th. But so the spring game's back. Any thoughts on that before we finish the show with one other semi-interesting nugget?
Yeah, I'm interested in the timing of it. Like you said, I guess I didn't put together that it would be in the Elite Eight day. So a lot of Husker fans might be in either Houston, San Jose, Chicago, or DC that day, which are the regional round locations.
That'd be great. I think Matt Rhule would encourage them to go. You have a free pass from the head football coach to skip the spring game, watch it on BTN, and go support Fred Hoiberg and the Nebraska basketball team in their bid to make the Final Four. You're good. Awesome. You're good.
So awesome. I hope that there's a decision to make. That would be a crazy day. The spring game, which is annoying for the most part anyway, right? Mm-hmm. Great. Take a back seat. This it would be perfect.
Yeah, it's going to be a QB showcase. You'll see a lot of Anthony Calandria and Danny Kalen and some TJ Lateef. So enjoy it, and then I hope for Nebraska fans that they have a reason to watch a lot of basketball that day. Nebraska is adding, this is their final thing, women's flag football to the lineup of sports at the school, a 15th women's sport to go with the 10 men's sports in 2028. So this is something that Matt Rhule wanted. He's been an advocate of women's flag football with his 2 daughters. He's a big proponent of advancing women's sports, and women's flag football has been something that's been on his radar. Nebraska had the women's flag football exhibition played at Memorial Stadium during the spring event last year. And they're gonna put this at the NCAA level, and it's an emerging sport at the NCAA. Nebraska is the first Power 4 school nationally to introduce a women's flag football team. There will be others that follow Nebraska. There are somewhere between 40 and 60 programs playing this in the country. They'll eventually have a championship, and Nebraska wants to be a leader here. Troy Dannon wants Nebraska to be a women's flag football school. So look for a head coach to be hired by this summer, and they'll have 15 players on scholarship without a team, starting practice and starting building this fall in 26-27. And then the next year, the second academic year, they'll play games in the spring, in the winter and the spring. The season goes, I don't know when the games start, but the season, like when practice and everything begins, is in January to May. Yeah. So we don't know where they're going to play. Maybe the soccer venue. It's like a 40 by 80 foot field.
Yeah, that was my first thought, that they played at Hibner, which is a great facility.
It'd be perfect for that. Yeah,
it feels like it'd be right for that. But yeah, I think it's just fascinating that, like you said, this is sort of the brainchild, I think, of Matt Rhule. And it's not a small deal to add a sport. I mean, there's a lot of money and investment that has to go into that. Nebraska hasn't added a varsity sport since 2013 with beach volleyball, which is,
it's not. And because it's a women's sport and women's sports are so supported at Nebraska, and because it's football and it has football in the name, it's going to be well received. Like, people are going to want to go check this out. Like, they're going to lead the nation in attendance, at least at the beginning of this thing.
Mark it down.
And it's, recruits are going to talk about flag football. Recruits are going to talk about how they want to come to Nebraska, and it's leading the way. So I don't know if you saw, but Nebraska has a softball recruit who's coming in the fall. And she was selected to play in the Super Bowl flag football exhibition She's a quarterback from Colorado. So my initial thought was, oh, hey, could she be a two sport athlete at Nebraska and be like your first flag football star and a softball player? But they play the same time. Like they both play in the spring. So I don't really think that that's something that you could do, right?
It'd be great if they started a program and they already had their quarterback, it doesn't start for another 2 years.
Lucy Thompson, Nebraska softball signee, Colorado High School Female Athlete of the Year. She will be on the stage at the Super Bowl playing flag football, but I don't know how she would do it at Nebraska unless she chose it over softball.
That's really cool. It'll be like watching Dylan Raiola in the Polynesian Bowl. It'll like we gotta watch this. Just get some scouting done here. So this will be cool and certainly a game changing thing for Nebraska. All right, that will do it for us today. Appreciate y'all listening and being with us and making Locked On Nebraska your first listen. For your second listen, check out Locked On College Football. On video, we're going to send you over to the first ever National 24/7 Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel, and we will talk to you tomorrow.